It's graduation season all over the country, and while many high school grads are enjoying their last summers at home, many are working hard saving up for college expenses. Here to help us debunk some of the biggest money myths about college is financial expert and author of the book Smart Money, Smart Kids, Rachel Cruze. Hi, Rachel.
Hi,
nice to see
Katie.
you.
Thanks for having me on.
So, you know, we've been talking a lot about college debt. The average college graduate has $33,000 in student loan debt. So how in the world does that get paid off?
Well, it's a lot of money, obviously, $33,000, and with the average interest rate being 6.8%, it looks around $400 a month if you want to pay it off in 10 years. And for college students, when they graduate, their first job, they're not making a lot of money, so $400 is a lot of money to them.
So how is student loan debt different than other kinds of debt? Because you're pretty much saddled with it for the rest of your days. And sometimes in this documentary, they show how sometimes it's handed down from generation to generation.
Yeah, well, it's not bankruptable. And so that's the big myth. A lot of people think, well, if I'm in a huge financial crisis, I can just file for bankruptcy, it'll all be wiped clean. And that's not true. So no matter what your financial situation is, you have to pay back your student loans.
And I know that there are sometimes, we heard Kia saying she had deferred some of her loans, but you know, students who do that do so at their own risk. Can you explain why?
Sure. Well, the interest is still accruing at that point. And so when you start paying back your loans after you deferred them, your monthly payment is a big chunk. I mean, it's a lot. It's more than what you would have paid because of the interest. And so I tell people to pay off your student loans as quickly as possible. Kick Sally Mae out of the house. She is not your friend. We do not like Sally Mae.
Poor Sally Mae. Okay, you're going to debunk some of the biggest college money myths for us, Rachel. One is, I worked hard to get into college. I deserve to go to the school I want. Why shouldn't you have that attitude?
Well, because it's not an entitlement. You know, you don't deserve that. Yes, you've worked hard, but be smart about your college choice. Students don't realize those 4 years, when those decisions you make, they can affect you for the next 20 years of your life. So choose an in-state school, take in-state tuition, go to a community college for their first year or two, go to a school you can afford. If you can afford an expensive school, if you can pay for that or go out of state, that's great, go do that. But if you don't have the money, choose a school you can afford.
Don't you think people get too hung up on name schools and sort of the idea of wearing a certain school on a T-shirt?
I do.
And by the way, I think the parents get obsessed with
wearing
a certain
school
on their T-shirts. I mean, how you basically, I think you're saying, don't be such a school snob.
Yes, well, employers, they want to see that you have work ethic. They
and
want to
by
see
the way,
your work
did you
experience.
know that most CEOs go to state schools? Just saying.
Yeah,
anyway.
a high percentage of the Fortune 400 CEOs, they went to state schools. They didn't go to big Ivy League schools necessarily. So again, I'm not mad at big expensive state school or big expensive schools. If you can afford it, go. But if you don't have the money, it's not worth it.
And what you're saying is employers aren't necessarily looking for that.
No.
I think they're looking for people who have achieved a lot in a whole variety of circumstances.
Yeah, if you tell an employer, I worked my way through school, that looks a whole lot more appealing than I went to a nice fancy school, but I'm $150,000 in debt.
Right. The second myth is student loans are a necessary evil of going to college.
Yeah,
I guess that sort of relates to the first myth, right?
Exactly right, yeah. You can be a student without a student loan. It's possible, it's hard work, it's hard to do. But again, choose that in-state school. If the average college student works 20 hours a week, they can pay their way through an in-state school, is what research has shown us. And then scholarships and grants. I mean, that's free money. I've talked to literally hundreds of college students who they apply for these obscure scholarships and grants, and they can literally pay their way through school just by that.
And how do you find out about ones that may not be, you know, all that obvious or apparent?
Yes, well, keep your ears open. Sadly, there's not one big database that has every scholar. I know.
Why don't you start that?
I should. That should be my new job. I know, Katie. Thank you. Yeah. Because, that would be very helpful. So you just want to look around. And again, the more obscure the scholarship, probably the more chance better that you're going to get it versus more general scholarships.
The next myth is the little decisions like meal plans and housing are not important.
Yeah, that is a myth. So your college experience is great, enjoy it, but live like a college student. So when you graduate, you don't have to continue to live like a college student. So look at things like, is a meal plan better, or is buying groceries a better choice? Is living on campus cheaper than housing outside of campus? So look at those options, because that can save you a lot of money.
It seems like people just need to be much more intentional about these decisions.
It's amazing.
And kind of not have their heads in the clouds so much.
Yes, and what's sad is that generation kind of has a little bit, the parents and the students have, their head has been in the clouds. So when they graduate, they have tons of debt, and not only student loan debt, but credit card debt because of living expenses.
And finally, the myth is, I need a credit card for emergencies and to establish credit. Because, you know, I remember seeing all those tables with people with banks trying to to get everybody to sign up for multiple credit cards.
It's
But
insane.
should you have one credit card when you're in college?
I say no credit cards at all.
Really? Because now Ellie graduated from college and she's having a hard time, you know, because she didn't have a credit card when she was in school.
Well, there are some
she
things.
just used mine a lot, a lot.
Yeah, well, you do have to navigate things like insurance or maybe a cell phone bill, but there's ways to do that. I don't have a credit score. I've never had a credit card in my entire life.
Really?
I use a debit card and
Yeah.
cash, so I use my own money. I don't have any credit cards. And so you can survive without a credit score. It's a little bit more difficult. There are some things, you know, you have to look into, but it's much easier to do that than to pay off debts that you build up to get this credit score. And for the emergency, college students, they need to have $500 to $1,000 for an emergency fund, because life in college is an emergency, right? I mean, if you get that credit card, you're going to swipe it. And when that payment comes at the end of the month, that credit card bill, that's a bigger emergency you're in than probably the emergency you thought was an emergency.
All right. Well, Rachel Cruze, I hope this has been very helpful to the average college graduate who is $33,000 in debt, because that's
sad. It's become a crisis. It
anyway,
really has.
thanks so much for coming in,
Katie.
Rachel. And for more information about the cost of college student loans and scholarships, head to Rachel's new website. Just kidding. Head to our website at katiecouric.com.